Welcome to Wallace and Wire. Today we're talking about netizens' reaction toward Mahathir's recent statements that Penang almost no longer belongs to the Malays.
And what a statement that was. I mean, that's a line that's just designed to start a fire, and it absolutely did.
It really did.
Yeah.
The former prime minister basically launched this really charged warning, claiming the Malay community is on the verge of losing their country. And he pointed straight at Penang as his prime example.
Exactly. He argued that because of, Malay poverty on one hand and political division on the other, land and assets are just slipping away into the hands of other races or even foreign buyers.
But it's more than just an economic complaint he's making, isn't it? There's a deeper political threat he's pointing to.
Oh, absolutely. This is a classic political move. He's raising the stakes to an existential level. He directly ties this loss of land to political erosion. The warning is that if you lose economic ground, you lose your electoral constituencies.
So smaller constituencies mean less political power.
Precisely. A shrinking economic base, in his view, leads directly to weakened Malay political dominance, especially if voter turnout is low. He's framing this as a genuine crisis for the future of the country's governance.
Okay, so before we dive into the backlash, which was pretty intense, let's unpack his diagnosis a bit more. He didn't just make a vague claim. He painted a specific picture of what he sees happening on the ground.
He did. He painted this picture of an economic siege. He was really stressing that this isn't just a big city problem anymore.
Right.
He's saying that urban areas all across the peninsula are now mostly non-Malay owned, and that this is expanding out into what used to be Malay rural lands. We're talking huge farms, industrial zones, even luxury housing.
And to fight this huge perceived threat, he offered an equally huge solution. It was a call for unity, almost a desperate one.
It really was. His whole solution was about internal cohesion. He was basically pleading for Malays to set aside all their political party squabbles, their NGO disagreements, everything.
To unite under one banner to save Tanah Malayo.
That was the phrase. He sees all this internal fighting as the Achilles heel, the thing that's making the economic situation worse.
But here's the part that really stands out to me. At the same time he's warning about poverty, he also lists off these staggering amounts of capital held by Malay-run institutions.
Yes. And that's the crucial contradiction, isn't it? It raises the question, if the resources are there, then why the panic?
Exactly.
He rattled off figure after figure. He pointed to the National Investment Institution, PNB, with billions in assets, including that huge 118-story tower in KL.
Right.
Then the central bank's reserves, over 120 billion US dollars. That's more than 400 billion ringgit. And then the big one, the Employees Provident Fund.
The EPF, yeah.
Which holds nearly 1 trillion ringgit. Plus the Retirement Fund Incorporated and the Pilgrims Fund Board. His point is sharp. The capital is there. The money exists.
So the problem isn't a lack of money. It's a failure of the system, maybe the political system that controls these funds, to actually use them to help the average person.
That's the implication. The political elite are failing the very people they're supposed to be protecting.
Okay, so let's move on to his proposed solutions. If land loss is the immediate danger, what was his immediate and, frankly, pretty drastic policy idea to stop it?
Well, it was a plan that would basically reshape the entire property market overnight. He suggested the government should just freeze all land sales, a complete freeze. And the only exception, the only ones who could buy land, would be those big national funds we just talked about, PNB, the Employees Provident Fund, and so on.
Wow. I mean, just freezing all land sales would send massive shockwaves through the economy, foreign investors, the stock market. It would just stop everything.
Of course. And I think he knew that, which is why he had a second part to his plan. For any new projects like housing or industry, he said they should use a leasing system instead of selling the land outright.
A leasing system. So developers would lease the land for, say, 99 years. But the ownership never actually changes hands.
That's the idea. It's designed to protect the original ownership forever. The asset itself stays, in his words, under Bumiputera control. It's an attempt to stop the bleeding without completely halting all economic activity.
But even he admitted that these are just treating the symptoms, not the root cause. He said the real solution lies deeper in Malay poverty itself.
And this is where he turned quite critical of the culture, actually.
How so?
He basically lamented what he sees as a lack of entrepreneurial drive. He argues that Malays generally prefer stable salary jobs, in the civil service or in government-linked companies.
It's the so-called iron rice bowl.
Exactly. This aversion to risk, he says, means they're not capitalizing on the country's resources, the land, the rivers, the sea. They leave those opportunities to others who are more willing to, take a chance in business.
So his final message is that survival isn't just about laws and policies, it's about a fundamental change in values.
That's the core of it, he's saying. Change your mindset, be more courageous, face the challenges of business, and build real wealth through enterprise, not just find stability in a job.
Okay, so now we have to talk about the reaction. Because when a former leader who was in power for 24 years says all this, the response online is, well, it's not going to be quiet.
Not at all. And the dominant theme by far was hypocrisy.
Right. People felt he was blaming them or blaming others for problems that were created or at least got much worse under his own watch.
It was a very deep, almost visceral resentment. I saw one comment online that just summed it all up perfectly. It said something like, he served twice as PM for 24 years, but in the end, only he became a billionaire and others stayed poor. Isn't that self-defeating?
And that one comment just captures this whole feeling of generational fatigue with this kind of rhetoric, doesn't it?
It really does. Another one directly asked, when you were in power, did you really help the Malays? You only took care of cronies, only the cronies got rich, while the poor Malays stayed poor.
So it's a direct rejection of his legacy on this issue. And what about on the specific point of land sales?
Oh, the response there was just as blunt. One person wrote, it was you people who sold the land. You think Malays today are as stupid as before.
So the netizens are pointing the finger right back at the political elite. They're saying the problem started at the top.
Exactly. The critique shifts from the poverty of the community to the incredible wealth concentrated among a few powerful families. People are saying, look, if all that money wasn't siphoned off, if it was actually used to help the Bumiputera majority, their lives would be much better without these crazy market-destroying policies.
Which brings us to another major part of the backlash. The feeling that this is just more racial politics for political gain.
That was everywhere. Comment after comment accusing him of still using the racial card or manufacturing racial opposition.
Yeah.
There's this palpable feeling among many that he's an obstacle to racial unity in today's Malaysia.
And what I found really interesting was how many people just flat out rejected his whole premise about Penang being lost.
Yes. They pushed back so hard on that. The common refrain was just simple and powerful. Penang belongs to all Malaysians.
And they defended the legitimacy of how the land was acquired, too.
They did. They pointed out that, the other races purchased the land with real money, not something that fell from the Baiski. It's a complete rejection of any narrative that the acquisition was somehow unfair or improper.
We also saw a lot of speculation about his personal motivations. People weren't buying that this was just about national concern.
No, the skepticism was deep. Some suggested this whole thing was a strategy to secure his son's political future by creating a political crisis that only his family's narrative can solve.
And others were more direct.
Much more direct. Just saying he's hungry for power or he cannot accept not being the prime minister. The general view online seems to be that this is self-serving political maneuvering, not genuine problem solving.
And finally, there was just this sense of exhaustion. People just seemed tired of it all.
Absolutely. The comments were full of it. Things like, he only knows how to cause trouble, or every time he speaks, it's nothing good. And you saw this recurring sentiment, almost sympathetic but firm, that at his age, he should be resting, not working.
So to pull this all together, what we have is a former leader issuing this incredibly severe warning about the future, proposing these radical solutions.
Like freezing all land sales, yeah.
But the public response, at least online, suggests his message is being completely rejected because of the messenger. His own history, his own legacy, is undermining his credibility on the very issues he's raising.
That's the heart of the paradox. His diagnosis, that economic disparity is a real threat to national stability, you can argue that's a valid concern.
Sure.
But his solutions are seen as economically catastrophic and politically divisive, and it all gets filtered through this lens of past failures, which leads to the real question for you listening and for the current leaders. If these concerns about identity and economic fairness are real, what actual long-term changes can be made?
Without resorting to this kind of charged rhetoric.
Exactly. How do you bridge the economic gap without blowing up the market or dividing the nation? It's an enormous challenge.
Food for thought indeed. Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.